I thought I'd do a little demonstration here. There's a group of people in the world that think milk is full of antibiotics and hormones and all this other stuff. Now, first off, there is no antibiotics in milk. Yes, antibiotics are used, but there is none in milk. Every truckload of milk is tested for antibiotics. As soon as it gets to the plant, and they'll pull a sample on the truck and they test it. If the truck tests positive for antibiotics, every farm they pull a sample of milk. And if it tests positive for antibiotics, then they go through and they test all them samples. And whoever comes up positive buys that truckload of milk. So there's a big incentive not to have antibiotics in milk. And this more or less is the test they use. This is the farm version of it. And I'm sure they use these modules. You can see here on this paper. This is a reader. It's more automatic. For the volume they're doing, they're not going to do it this way, but they still use the same testers. Now what I have here is, just hold on. Forgot to take the caps off this test tubes. Now, this is what they call the snap test, and I'll get this started here and talk more about it. And it's an incubator block, and in these you have, probably can't see it, there's a little pellet in there. I'm not sure what it is or what it does, but there's a pellet in these test tubes. And the first thing you do is, probably ain't gonna see on there, but there's a little line on this pipette right there. You take that and you add it to the test tube, and then you shake it around here for a few seconds and you stick it in there. And we'll do this other sample here, and I'll tell you about them here in a minute. Get this started. Okay, now they got to stay in there for 5 minutes to incubate. And like I said, I'm sure that what that pellet is doing is probably breaking down the protein or something in the milk for whatever they're detecting for. So like I said, I'll tell about these modules. Light's never right when I'm trying to do this. But this is the modules I got, the beta-lactam. Okay, and these are the category of drugs and the branded drugs it's testing for. This is the penicillins, the amoxicillins, ampicillin, cephalin drugs. Okay, and the cephalin drugs here are Cepha-Dry, Cepha-Lac, Today, Tomorrow. Now, the Cepha-Lac and Today are the same thing, just different brand names. And then the Celifor drugs, you got Xanel, Exceed, Naxel. And I really don't know why these are here, because there is no withholding on milk or meat on them drugs. But, and then they say you got Polyflex and the penicillin, penicillin bolus, are ampicillins, the amoxicillin, penicillins. There's quite a few brand names of the penicillins. So these test modules do the beta drugs. And what I'm testing here for now is the Today shot. And it's cephalin sodium is the ingredient in it. Now, what I have here now, this is a cow I have treated, and this is out of the bulk tank. So I can show you the two differences between these, how these read. Now, you don't really have to test the milk when you treat the cow. It's a good idea, to test it before you put it in the tank to be sure, because like humans, cows metabolize things different. You know, so I've been told, guys have told me, you know, they've treated cows with this drug and they've tested them like 4 milkings later and it came back negative. Well, I wouldn't put much faith in that when you're talking about buying a truckload, but if you follow the label directions, there's usually not a problem with it. But like I say, it's a good idea to test it before you put it back in the tank. And my goal here is to show this one to come up positive, because I just treated this cow yesterday, so she should be positive for antibiotics. Now this drug here is infused into the quarter. You just pop this cap off, insert it up in the orifice of the end of the tit, and squeeze it up in there. And you use one of these in each infected quarter. It's to treat for mastitis, which is an infection in the mammary gland. And you treat her, like I said, if I was to treat her this morning, you give her another shot 12 hours later, so another dose tonight, and then you got to dump the milk for 8 milkings or 4 days. So that's why they call this, it says on the tube here, they advertise this as 1 day treatment, but what is, you give 2 doses in a 24-hour period and then you dump the milk for 4 days. There is no there's 4-day withholding on the meat with this drug here too. So that's basically how I'm testing for this. And like I said, this block heater heats up to, I think it's between 112 and 115 degrees that this is incubating at. I got about another minute to go on this here yet. So this first step is due for 5 minutes. Now there's other test modules you can get. This one's for tetracycline drugs, and I'm pretty sure they probably run both of these because these are the most common. It's aflatoxin. Read that right. It's something that can be detected in the milk. I think it's from mycotoxins from contaminated feed. I've never even heard of that drug. And these are sulfamazine. These are basically sulfa drugs. They're not really used that much. In fact, I don't know if they're even legal in Pennsylvania here anymore. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. And what you do after that, you dump it into that little module there. And it's probably going to show up very well. But you can see it's wicking down through this media. And the next should take about a minute. It's going to be hard to see. This dot here is blue. You wait until that just starts to turn white. It's wicking down through here, and it should just start to turn white here. I never have the right light. Get this one here, get this one going. So that one starts looking through. But you don't want that one to go completely white. It's too late if it's gone completely white. And then all you do is just push down on that until it snaps. Oh, let's see here. So you can see that one changing. I say it's hard to see, but it's starting there now. Oh. Okay, now you gotta wait 4 minutes. And here's an old one here. What's in these things? There's two. I don't know what it is. Reagents or some other chemical, whatever, to make whatever reaction that needs to be done. But you got these two spikes on here that puncture that, and I guess that wicks the elements up in there. So as you can see, it's starting to change. The head before I started, it had them little dots up there, and that wicked out, went down. Now it's drawing this other stuff up in here. And they say you gotta wait 4 minutes, and then you read it. And what we want to see is between the negative and the positive. Now after 4 minutes, the negative, you have a control dot and your sample dot. And this will be your how it reads for positive. And for negative, the sample dot has to be darker than or equal to the control spot. No drug residue detected. And the positive, if your sample is lighter than the control dot, drug residue is detected. So let me say, we just got to wait 4 minutes for this to develop. Now, like I say, there's other tests out there. I don't know if they're more accurate or what, but I know there's one out there. It takes there's a 12-hour incubation time. So like I say, I don't know what the benefit of that test is. Like I say, if it's more, it must not be that reliable, because I know a guy that has one of them tests, and he had pneumonia going through the barn, and he used one of these XL drugs, whatever it was. And like I say, it's labeled no withholding on the milk. But I guess because he had several cows treated, they didn't go for that. So they wanted the milk tested. Well, he's got that 12-hour kit, and he tested it, and they wouldn't accept his test. And even after the vet explained to him that there is no withholding on the milk, they showed him the label from the manufacturer saying there's no withholding, there should be no problem, they still wouldn't let him take it until they got it tested. So he sent him over to me, because I have this test. So I had to run that test for him. And which I didn't understand. It was more because the milk inspector didn't want to run. At that time, he lived, he's probably 40, 50 miles away from here, and he didn't want to run up to run the test, because that's the one reason why I got this test. He actually gave me this thing because, it's probably been 3-4 years ago. I might have screwed up. I might have milked a dry cow that was treated, and I didn't know if I did for sure or not. I was sure I didn't, but I couldn't say I didn't. So I called him, and he'll come out and test the milk. And he came out the first time and did it. And then about 3 months later, it happened again. And he didn't want to do it, and him and hawed around. Then he asked me one day if I'd be interested in having my own kit. Now, this is actually a milk inspector I had probably 10 years ago. He retired, and somehow the inspector I had at the time somehow came around, and he brought me this kit. He gave it to me. So now I can test on my own. Now we'll turn this. Now I'll say the one on the right was the bulk tank. And we got the 2 dots. The one on the bottom is the sample. Come on, focus. And right there, that's pretty much equal in color. If it's equal or darker than the control spot, that's negative, which is good because that's the bulk tank. This other one, if you look, there's only 1 dot. There's no dot on the bottom, so that's definitely lighter than the control dot. And if it's lighter, it's positive. So there you go. That's how you can test for antibiotics in the milk. You have one of these little test kits. And like I say, this is just a demonstration. Like I say, this one should have been positive for drugs, and that one should have been negative. Usually them dots are a little bit darker. It does get a little bit darker over time, but But like I said, this is basically the same thing the milk company uses, except for they just read it through one of these things. They might even have a bigger one than this. Like I say, for the volume that they're testing, they got something different than just doing this. And it's probably a little more automated to eliminate human error. Yeah, this it heats up to 113 degrees plus or minus 9 degrees. That's what that incubator does. But like I say, there's these other modules you can buy. It's bad enough buying these. A box of 30 is like 80 bucks. And it's something I might use once a month, maybe once every other month. And these things are only good for like 6 or 8 months. So 9 times out of 10, I'm throwing out probably about 20 or 30, 25 of these things for nothing. You know, like I said, they're about almost $3 a piece, and it's a waste. You know, we can find somebody else that has the same test, and we could split out a box or something. But like I said, I'm pretty sure the milk company probably also tests for these, but like, these are pretty uncommon. So, but yeah, that's how there's no antibiotics in milk, and that's the other thing. Now, say this one had come up positive. Let's see, a little more time here. You can see they're getting a little bit darker. But like I say, this one was the bulk tank. Say this one came up positive, which is one reason why I'd be testing. If I had made the mistake and not, if I ran the milk in the tank. Usually, what I do is I actually use the old bucket milkers. As I show you here. I just use the old bucket milkers to milk the cow separate, so there's no chance it gets in the pipeline to end up in the tank. But for some freak accident it did. Like I say, I put the milk on the wrong cow, and this tested positive. That's one thing with DFA. I could call the milk inspector and tell them that DFA will pay me if I have to dump the milk. I can dump 4 milkings in a 12-month period, and they'll still pay me for that milk. They'll just measure the tank, get the weight, and I'll get paid the base price. You know, I won't get quality bonuses or, you know, premiums or anything on it. But they will pay me to dump that milk. Because, like I say, they don't want to dump a truckload of milk. Because, like I say, if they have to dump that truckload of milk, from what I understand, unless you know somebody that's got a manure pit where they could dump it into, they send it to a sewer treatment plant, and you pay for the disposal of that, which I know is going to be probably $500-600. Because I know what it costs to pump the septic tanks here at the milk house. So you're going to be paying that, plus you're going to be paying that load of milk. So if you're talking a 5,000 gallon truckload of milk, that's 43,000 pounds. Say it was $20 a hundred. It's 430 hundredweights. So take 430 times 20, be $9,600. So you're talking over $10,000 for a truckload of milk if the antibiotics go on it. So like I say, there's plenty of incentive to make sure there's no antibiotics in milk. So like I said, these people that spew that crap out there that don't know what they're talking about, you know, how many times here in the last 2 years have you heard of recalls on lettuce because of contamination? So, like I say, and as you can see here, I really don't have that much antibiotics. All I have is the Today shots, and I have penicillin. And that's all I got. Now, I usually have some other stuff here I'm out of right now, but they're not antibiotics. I usually have, well, if you're a farm, you'll have these around all the place. Something. You always got a bad back, sore backs. But I usually have what would be for the cows, it's an injectable, it's a high potency aspirin. But that's another one you've got to watch, because you give that wrong, you're talking 6 months of meat withholding on them, at least. But all I got, like I said, it's vitamin B. Simple if cows are off feed or got the booster appetite, a shot of vitamin B is good for that. Oxytocin, you know, that's got several uses. That's what the cows produce to release milk. And like I said, this will help. Like if a cow's got mastitis, help her to release and flush that stuff out. Or if a cow's got a hard calving, this will help control, after they pull the calf, will help reduce the swelling of the uterus and help prevent some of the problems they can have there. And these are stuff to, you know, if a cow has cystic ovaries, if she's having problems showing signs of heat and stuff, that's stuff to treat for that. There you go. There's another one of my short videos, I guess. I wasn't planning on doing all that, but yeah, like I said, there's very limited chance and big incentive not to put antibiotics in the milk. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you later.